So it's 5 lines up from the bottom on page 7b. And if you're in the Art Scroll, you are on 7b3. So the complicated pasuk was this pasuk of Imkeha Habarzel, which is a pasuk in Koheles in Ecclesiastes. Imkeha Habarzel, if the iron is dull, v'hulai panim kilkel, and he didn't sharpen. Literally, it means the face of it, which I guess means the edge of the knife, of the barzel, of the iron. Imra Isa v'hulai panim kilkel. What's the end of the verse? V'chayolam yegaber. It will be strong. Though the soldiers will win, will be able to succeed with it. V'yisrain hechsher chachma. V'yisrain hechsher chachma, and there will be a advantage of wisdom. Now, that's of course a very unclear verse. What is the verse really saying? That the verse is it's saying about a dull knife or a dull piece of iron, but nevertheless, and it's not the iron is not sharpened.
Okay.
Nevertheless, you could the soldiers will still be able to use this iron, this sword that's weak. They'll be able to win. However, Yisrain Hechsher Chachma, that wisdom has an advantage. What does that mean? That wisdom, meaning a scholar who prays or who begs Hashem, he will help even more than the actual sword. He will help the soldiers win in his merit. So that's the simple meaning. But our Gemara is going to translate it to mean rain. So let's read our Gemara's interpretation. Imra'isa rakia shakia kebarzel. If you found the rakia, the heavens, that it's weak like iron. Now, what does that mean? It's weak like iron. It doesn't have strength. Milahirid talu mutter, to give off dew and rain. So it's struggling to give. The sky is dull. It's not giving rain. Why is that? So now we got to look at that pasuk again. V'hu loy panim kilkel. It's because the actions, Maisei Hadar Shehin Makulkalim. It's because of the actions of the nation, of the generation, that are makulkal, that are disgraceful or not appropriate.
Corrupt.
So they're corrupt. Thank you. That's a good word. They're corrupt. Shenemar, as it says, V'hu loy panim kilkel. And the commentaries struggle how to fit this in the words, but V'hu loy panim kilkel, which is he hasn't polished. One way is he hasn't polished his front, meaning he hasn't polished up his actions. He's corrupt. He hasn't polished. So in other words, we're translating kilkel according to this means polished. He hasn't polished or sharpened his actions. And then it says, "Who like panim kilkel."
Can you please mute?
Mute, yeah. Okay. So v'hulai panim kilkel, he has not polished his actions, and so that means that the actions are corrupt because of it's because of the actions of the generation, they're corrupt. So matakanasam. So what's the way of to rectify this problem? How can you fix it? Yiskabru barachamim. you should have a abundance of strengthen yourself with asking for mercy. Shenemar, as it says, v'chayolim yigaver, v'chayolim yigaver. The soldiers should win over, meaning through prayer. Spiritual soldiers will win through their prayer. The Yisrain hechsher chachma. Now, what does that mean? The advantage of wisdom is what that means is it would have even been greater if they would be righteous from the start. The Yisrain hechsher chachma kol shkenim huchshru ma'asehen meikara. It would have been much greater if they would have cleaned up their actions from the beginning. So that's the way the Gemara is translating this pasuk, that because the people's actions are corrupt, that's why the sky is weak from giving rain. And what do you need to do? So you should arrange to have spiritual soldiers use their prayer to win over, to ask Hashem for mercy. But the best would be if the people would not have had corrupted actions in the first place. So that's a way of interpretation of this verse in Ecclesiastes. Now, Reish Lakish says, Imra'isa Talmud, if you see a student, Shel Talmud Kasha Olav Kabarzel, that his studies is hard, he's not having success. His studies, his learning is kasha olav kabarzel. It's hard for him like iron to study, which means that they're translating. Again, the pasuk is not so simple to fit. The pasuk says if it's weak, keha, dull like iron. So it means his learning is weak and it's hard like iron for him to grasp. So that's how they're translating the pasuk. It's bishvil mishnasoi she'ena sedur. Again, we're on page 8a. 8a, we just turned to 8a. It's because of his learning that's not sedura alav. It's not organized in front of him. And that's the word, the Hebrew words for that was panim kilkel. That's the words in the pasuk, as the Gemara says, shenemar v'hu loy panim kilkel. Because now again, to translate it's not so simple how to fit this in. V'hu loy panim kilkel. V'hu loy means you have to like divide it up into two parts. V'hu loy, and he's not finding success. So the reason is because panim kilkel, it's because his preparation, his panim, his introduction to it, his preparation for it was disorganized or messy. He didn't organize his learning. And what this means is that when you learn Mishnayos, you learn the Mishnahs and you get clarity, then you can afterwards learn Gemara and you can have a smooth ride. A smooth ride. You'll see questions, you'll see answers, the Gemara will flow well. But if you don't have the original Mishnayos clear in your mind, so you're so flaky in everything that you know is so unsettled, so it's gonna be very painful for you or very complicated for you to ever get to really grasp it, because you don't have clarity on anything. And Rashi spells this out in two ways. Rashi says, number one, if you don't have clarity in it, then you forget it, because clarity allows you to remember stuff. If you don't have clarity, you'll forget whatever it says, and then you won't be able to answer any questions, because you'll be stuck with questions because you forgot basically everything, because you never had clarity. Clarity allows a person, if a person has a clear understanding, it'll make it easier for him to remember. Again, you still have to review. It's not like the answer to all problems, but if you don't have clarity, you won't be able to remember. Then Rashi says a second thing. He says that if you initially learn things wrong, so whatever you learn is now going to be contradictory. You're going to see things that contradict because you initially learned things wrong. So that's what it means that your study is complicated, like iron. It's because your Mishnah is not organized. Panim kilkel. You ruined your initial learning. Your initial learning was messed up. And what's the answer to this problem? Now the Gemara says, "My takante." The Gemara answers, "Yarbe b'yeshiva." Go and hang out, have abundance of hanging out in the yeshiva, and that will help you. Yes, Ben.
I want to say that's how I feel sometimes. If I didn't understand what you said, but you keep going, and I'm still thinking, trying to figure that one out, and I'm losing a couple other items, you know. So that's what they mean by kilkel or kalkel, you know.
It's funny. Kilkel means it depends
It's
how you
disorganized or broken or whatever it is.
Well, there's two translations.
It's also misunderstanding. You know, if you didn't understand something and you continue, you don't know where you're going, you know.
Right. If you didn't understand something and then you missed the whole flow afterwards. Right. So the thing is that kilkel in our Gemara actually means two things. One, in the pasuk, the literal meaning means sharpened. V'hu like panim kilkel, he didn't sharpen the knife. Then it was dull, the iron, and he didn't sharpen it. But it also means kilkel, like call him a kalkalin, anyone who destroys in a destructive way. So it could also mean destruction, destroyed, destructive, or corrupt. You know. So the question is that what is our Gemara playing on that word or not?
Like today,
the way I translate it.
Today you started with Barzel, but I couldn't find it.
Oh,
so it took me a while to find it. You didn't say what line in my book, so
okay, I'm sorry.
I changed to the out scroll, and you didn't say how many lines or where I can find it, but I did find it finally in the middle of the thing.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Basically, we started 5 lines up from the bottom of the page on 7b. That's where we started. 5 in the actual Gemara. 5 lines up from the bottom. V'amar Reb Ami. That's where we started. V'amar Reb Ami. And now in the art scroll, if you let me pull it up over here. V'amar Reb Ami is the second to last paragraph on 7b3.
I don't know what paragraph means, but
well, there's an indent at the beginning of each paragraph on the page.
On the left side.
So there's a 7b3. There's 2 columns. The right column, in the middle says V'amar Reb Ami.
No, I don't find it.
Are you in the Hebrew art scroll or the English art scroll?
No, the Hebrew.
Oh.
Oh, is that
I did not buy. I didn't buy a Koran.
I couldn't find it.
I didn't buy a Hebrew. I didn't. I don't have every single person.
Okay.
I don't have Safaria in front of me. But it's basically the last shtickle of the Gemara, the last piece of the Gemara before you turn the page.
I did find it finally. On the left side, where they're explaining things, it's in English and Hebrew. So that's why I found it on the last article. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, the bottom line is that the Gemara, it doesn't seem to be adding so much more than what we learned earlier, except that it's interpreting a pasuk to fit what we learned earlier. We learned earlier about the reason why it doesn't rain is because people are doing sins, or people doing major sins, or people are having brazenness, or people are there's theft, or we had like all these reasons why it's why there's no people speaking Lashon Hara. Why isn't it raining, right? So the Gemara here said it's because of Ma'asav Mikol Kolam. The people's actions are corrupt. What do you do about it? The Gemara said, well, the Chayolim, it says the Chayolim Higbir. What was the word? Yigaber. The Chayolim Yigaber. You got to get people to pray. You got to get the the spiritual soldiers. Literally, it means soldiers, but it means the spiritual. So you got to get the right people to pray, and of course, if you want it to reign without any problems in the first place, it would have been smarter to not have corruption in it all. So all of that, I mean, we pretty much have mentioned these ideas before. But what the Gemara did here was it explained it, fitted into a pasuk that's complicated, a complicated pasuk in Ecclesiastes in chapter 10 over there. We explained that this is what that verse means. That's basically what we just said. And then we had the next piece, and that's where we turned the page, and that's about a student who's not successful. A student who's not finding success. What's the reason why he's not finding success is because he did not have a good base, a good, initial source of his learning wasn't his young years of learning. He didn't get clarity. So then whatever he built on top of that is not going to work. And so we explained Rashi has two interpretations. One is if you don't have understanding of the rules in the first place, so then you don't remember things. Because if you understand things, it's more clear to you. It'll be clear in your mind. You'll be able to remember. You still have to review, but it'll be clear. Then Rashi said another point that you might have things wrong. It's not just you don't have clarity, you have things wrong, like you learned the wrong rule. And then you're going to really have contradictions later. So that also could be the meaning of this verse. And again, I mentioned the verse doesn't fit so smoothly. You have to like work on figuring out how the verse fits, because the verse is talking about iron and it's talking about sharpening it. And so we translated the pasuk to mean that the pasuk says, let me read for you the pasuk again. In keha habarzel, literally means if the iron is dull, but we translate it if he's weak in his studies and it's hard for him like iron. And v'hulai panim kilkel, we have to divide in two parts. V'hulai, and he's not having success in his learning. Panim kilkel, it's because his earlier learning was messed up. His earlier initial base of his Torah knowledge, his Judaic studies, his must be a term for the elementary learning that that you based everything else on, but his source of all of his learning is weak, is broken, is not clear. V'chayolim yegaber. So the answer to this whole problem is that he has to go amongst the soldiers. You have a problem with your learning. It's not clear. Where do you hang out? Hang out amongst the soldiers, amongst the spiritual soldiers, the yeshiva boys. They're the spiritual soldiers. Chayolim yigaber. And the Yisrain hechsher chachma basically means that it would have been more advantageous if he initially had his Torah study organized in the first place. If he, in other words, he made sure to learn it well in the first place, and that's what we're learning now. That's what we're up to over here. My takante. So let me tell you, I'm on the third line of the Gemara. My takante, third line of the Gemara, and if you're in the art scroll, we're starting. My takante is the sixth line. On a seventh line on page 8A1, seventh line. My takante. So what do you do about this? His learning is not so organized. His learning is he's not having success in his learning. Yarbe b'yeshiva, it says. He should have hang out in abundance in the yeshiva, with the yeshiva boys. That they should organize his learning for him, learn with him, and give him clarity, give him a confidence in his learning, and give him clear and straightforward teachings. Shenemar, as it says, v'chayolim yegaber, that the chayolim, the soldiers, will strengthen his learning, will help him, will overcome this problem and win. The Yisrain hechsher chachma, and it would have been better if he prepared himself more for the chachma. which means the Gemara spells it out. For sure, or would have been how much more so would have been good if his Mishnah, his study of Mishnah, which is the basis of all the other teachings, if that was Sidura Loi, was organized for him Meikara in the first place. And then the Gemara says, Ki ha Diresh Lakish. And this is all new stuff. We didn't learn. Where did you get up to, Isaac? Do you know what line? Remember what line you got up to?
Ches Amid Aleph. Hold on.
Third large line,
Oh, wow. Okay, you got all the
Yeah,
way
all the
there.
way down.
Oh, okay, incredible.
A few lines before it.
Okay. Wow. Okay, so then we got a lot to do. So the Gemara continues and says, Ki had the Reish Lakish, similar to what Reish Lakish used to do before he went to learn with Rabbi Yochanan. What did he do? Have a Masader Masnise Arboin Zimnin. He would prepare and go over his Mishnah, his 40 times, Arboin Zimnin, 40 times. He would go over his Mishnah, his studies. Keneged Arboim Yom Shenitna Torah, corresponding to the 40 days that the Torah was given. In other words, Moshe Rabbeinu went up to heaven for 40 days, and well, he went up Har Sinai, but he went to study. He went up to heaven to learn Torah with Hashem. And the understanding is that so Reish Lakish did the same thing. He prepared 40 days. The Ayel Kamei de Rabbi Yochanan, and then he would go in front of Rabbi Yochanan for Rabbi Yochanan to expound on the Mishnayos. Now, what does that mean? Sounds like it's saying that Moshe Rabbeinu, why did he go for 40 days? Because every day he was learning the same thing and just needed to repeat it 40 times. So each day he was doing that repetition 40 times. And this is what Reish Lakish did. He went over it 40, everything that he learned. Of course, Moshe Rabbeinu learned the whole Torah probably each day. And the whole Torah, he repeated 40, each day once. Hashem taught it to him. And then at the end of the 40 days, he had clarity. So Reish Lakish did the same thing. He would do 40 times. He would go over each piece of each Mishnah that he was expecting to start to hear from Rabbi Yochanan. He would study it 40 times. Nowadays, we're lucky if people review once, but the great people, they would review. A lot of people, there are a number of
They
people.
didn't have a choice, Rebbe. They didn't have books. We sit here with a book. We open it, we close it. They didn't have books.
Well, whatever they did worked.
Yeah, I'm saying they had to.
They had to. Well, I think I don't know if everyone did this did as much as Reish Lakish.
Not as much, but
Rabbi, didn't they
Tuesday.
have papyrus? Didn't they put things on papyrus?
Yeah, they had their own personal notes. According to the Rambam writes that they had their personal notes. So yeah, it's not. But in any event, it definitely seems to be a good method. This is what Moshe Rabbeinu did, and this is what Reish Lakish did. The Ayel then he went in front of Rabbi Yochanan, and he would learn with Rabbi. He learned under Rabbi Yochanan. Rav Ada bar Ava Masadim Masnise, he would prepare his Mishnah Esrin Biarba Zimnin, or his studies 24 times. Keneged Torah Nevi'im Uksuvim, corresponding to the Tanakh, which has 24 books. The Ayel Kamei de Rava, and then he would go in front of Rava. One of the questions on this Gemara is, what did it help to do something corresponding to the Tanakh? If you did it in corresponding to the 40 days that Moshe Rabbeinu went to heaven, so then you could say Moshe reviewed his stuff 40 times. I'm also reviewing it 40 times. That was the 40 days. But what does it help if there's 24 books of the Tanakh and you're learning your stuff 24 times? why does it help to do it corresponding to the books of the Tanakh? Why does that help you organize your, makes things more organized in your mind if you do it corresponding to the Tanakh? Like, what exactly does it help to do it in that number?
Isn't
There is a commentary
can-
that mentions that
can
there's a
you make-
pasuk. Yeah, I'm sorry. What did you say, Ezra?
Rabbi?
Yeah.
Aren't there times in which you quote psukim from the Tanakh, and so you really have to know what the psukim actually mean in order to be able to understand
Oh,
what
for
the
sure,
Mishnah is talking about.
for
So-
sure.
So maybe that may be the reason why.
But again, what is he doing? He's, let's say, learning a Mishnah about Taanis. So he would go over it 24 times. Why 24? Because there's 24 books of the Tanakh. Now, that's not helping him know the books of the Tanakh. All it's doing is letting him learn the Mishnah about in Tractate Taanis. He's only doing Tractate Taanis 24 times. So I don't know if it'll help him with the verses. You know what I mean? He's doing it 24 times, corresponding to the verses of the books of the Tanakh. But you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if it's really helping him with the verses, just because he's learning this 24 times. One of the commentaries here says that there's a pasuk that says al yoshev dach nichlam, which is a pasuk in Tehillim that means don't send I think a poor one away embarrassed. But another translation of it would be Yoshev Dach means 24. Dach is the gematria of 24. That if you go over your studies 24 times, you won't end up embarrassed in the Beis Medrash. Al Yoshev Dach Nichlam. Someone who studies 24 times won't return Nichlam. Dach doesn't return Nichlam, doesn't return embarrassed. So in other words, it'll help you remember it if you do it 24 times. So that's a little remez, a hint for this number of 24 to go over. Again, it doesn't explain what does it help to do it relative the number. In other words, what we're really looking for is what does the fact that it symbolizes the 24 books of the Tanakh, how does that help your memory, just because you did it in a number that symbolizes the amount of books there are. But in any event, the 40 days and either 40 times or 20, we see that they did study a lot in order to have clarity, and that's really a big help if you start off, have everything like it says in Pirkei Avos, that a child, he has a fresh, studies things on a clean, he's starting off clean with a clear mind. So for him, it's a lot, it's a lot more, it's very valuable for it that he has clarity on all of his teachings, and he has a good basis for everything else that he's going to learn when he gets older. Yes, Ben.
I wanted to say, I don't know, they can pick different numbers, but for each person, it might be a different number of times that you need to repeat it.
That's
Not
true.
everybody has the same memory. So picking a number, I don't think it's helping anybody else, It also depends for how long you want to remember it. If you want to remember it for 5 minutes, 3-4 times will remind you in 5 minutes. But if you want to remember it longer, you need more times, yes. That's the way I find it, so I don't know.
I mean, you're right. Obviously, every person's mind, every person's, has a different
Whether
level
it's
of
40
memory.
or 24 depends on the person.
Actually, that I brought a source I was mentioning from Pirkei Avos. What I really I really should have mentioned is this statement. It's al tistalkel b'kankan ela b'ma sheyesh bo. Don't look at the outside of the jug. You got to look at what's in it. They could have a new jug, but it's filled with old stuff, which means valuable stuff. You could have so it could be a new jug, but it has the valuable wine, Yoshan, that has Mole Yoshan. But you could have an old jug that it doesn't even have new stuff in it, has nothing in it. So in other words, it's all about having the good stuff. You want the valuable stuff, and that's what's really important to have. To start off right and have the right have clarity in things. Okay. 1 second.
Rabbi,
Yes, Moshe.
I just want to make a point about clarity and absorption and memory with regards to the Mishnah and so forth. But in the more secular sense, somebody, for example, who's a classical musician, which I have some exposure to. I'm a pianist myself, but either a person has the ability to play a composition, or he doesn't. Even if he's, with all the practice that a person can have with regards to learning a piece of music, the one who's got more ability to play it, there's different kinds of musicians. A musician can have the seichel. He has the ability to play a piece, and because it's in his makeup to do it. You see, as opposed to someone who can learn it and keep playing it over and over again. He can play it, but it's not being delivered properly. You know what I'm saying? So, I'm just trying to use a sort of crude example of how this may apply, because you have to be, of course, you have to be prepared before you deliver you deliver something to a yeshiva or to a group of rebbeim, but you have to have that ability. It has to be within. You have that ability to do it. If you don't, if you're just delivering an idea and it's not, you don't really, you don't have it within you to deliver it properly, it's not gonna be expressed properly. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, all right, interesting. Yeah, the thing that I was also quoting over here was that Elisha ben Avuya says that if you learn when you're a child, it's compared to ink written on a new, clean sheet. If you learn when you're older, it's compared to ink written on a rubbed out writing sheet. What does that mean? That if you have clarity when you're younger, you make sure to learn it right when you're young, because you're writing on a new, clear, clean sheet of paper. You'll have it for the rest of your life. It'll be nice and clear. If you try to get clarity later, it's almost like it helps, as our Gemara says, you hang out in yeshiva, but it's like rubbed out. You got to erase, you got to put back, you got to correct certain things that you're mistaken with. So there's a certain benefit of having the clarity when you're, when you start out, if you start out right.
Young brain is new paper.
Yeah, it's like a new paper, but to have it clear from the start, instead of having to change things. Right. There's no whiteout on it. You don't. Okay. The next Gemara, yes.
Rabbi, there's going back and forth like a Pirkei Avos. If it was old, if it was new, you could say even if it was old paper, but it was good ink, that would be better than bad ink on new paper. It has to be like that.
Right. Okay. Let's go back. Let's continue with the next piece over here. Where are we up to? Rava Amar. So Rav Barava, after he finished 24 times, he went in front of Rava. Now the Gemara says, Rava Amar. Rava says, in Risa Talmud, another translation of this verse of Imkeha Habarzel. So again, the first time we translated it to refer to the rain, that the sky is weak in giving. It's dull, and that it's not giving off rain. That was the first translation that we had, and it's because of people's actions are corrupt. Then we said it has to do with someone who's not successful in his learning. Now the Gemara says another Rav Amar Risa Tamash Kashav Barzel. Another reason why he might be unsuccessful in his learning is that why is he not finding success? If you see a student that his learning is hard, he's having difficulties, like barzel, like iron, many questions, he can't get clarity. It's bishvil rabbi she'enai masber panim. It's because his teacher is not showing him any attention, like good, positive attention.
A
He's
friendly
not
face. A friendly face.
Friendly face. Shenemar v'hulai panim kilkel. As it says, he is not v'hulai panim kilkel. What does that mean? V'hulai, he's not understanding the reasons, or he's not finding success. Panim kilkel, again, we have to like push it into the translation. Panim kilkel, it's because the teacher is showing a face of kilkel, of corruption, so to speak, a face that's not showing love. Panim kilkel. The face is his facial expression to him is negative. So my takante, what is the way of fixing this problem? Yarba olav reim, get friends to appease the teacher. Shenemar, as it says, v'chayolam yegaber. That's the next words in the verse. So it's v'hulai, he's not having success. Panim kilkel, because the teacher is not showing a face of love to him, shining face. V'chayolam yegaber, so you got to get soldiers to strengthen his case in front of his Rebbe. In other words, they should appease the Rebbe, and encourage the Rebbe to forgive whatever the Rebbe disliked about this student. The try get people to go and put in a good word, and be advocates for him. The Yisrael hechsher chachma. What does the end of that pasuk mean? That there's advantage of wisdom. So it says, for sure, this wouldn't be a problem. He wouldn't have it hard to learn if his actions would have been kosher, would have been appropriate, and his Rebbe wouldn't be upset with him. His actions would be appropriate from the first place. Then he wouldn't have to fix up. The Rebbe wouldn't be looking at him with a negative face. The fact that he's showing him a negative countenance has to do with the fact that he must have done some things wrong, and he needs to get friends to should get soldiers to come and put in a good word for him. But so that's another translation of this hard verse in Ecclesiastes. And now the Gemara says, what about the next verse in Ecclesiastes? Rabami says, "My dechsiv." What does it mean? If the snake bites B'loi lachash, without being charmed, ve'ein yisrain lebal haloshoin, and there's no benefit to the person who is the man of tongue. Now, what does that mean? So literally, it means that when the snake comes to bite the person, and the person who knows how to charm doesn't charm, b'loi lachash. So he doesn't charm them. Doesn't charm the snake. There's no benefit of this guy. He's not doing his job. What benefit is he if he didn't charm the snake? That's the end of that verse. Yeah, that's the end of that verse. what is the Gemara wants to know? So what is it really referring to? So the Gemara says, if you see a generation that the heavens is rusty, it means it's turning rusty because nachash from the word nachash, like copper, rusty like copper, from pouring down rain and dew and rain. So it's not giving rain. What's the reason? It's bishvil. It's because beloy lachash. That's the pasuk. It says beloy lachash because we don't have people who are davening quiet Shemon Esrei. That's the problem. Lachash means quiet. People aren't davening quiet Shemon Esrei. This either means they're not davening at all, or they're not davening quiet. They're talking. They're saying Shemon Esrei out loud. But the generation is not a generation that's doing things quietly. In this generation, we don't have people who know how to pray properly. My takanasam, what's the way to fix this problem? They should go to someone who knows how to daven properly, to do a quiet Shemon Esrei lochesh, to quietly daven. As it says, Yagid olav reyoy, as it says, and this is a pasuk in Job, that Yagid olav reyoy mikna'af al oila. That's the pasuk. So Yagid olav reyoy, that means you should have his friend should daven for him. Literally, that pasuk refers to convince them to do tshuva. But the Gemara here is learning that it means that if these people aren't leichashay lachishois, they're not davening quietly, then you got to get a friend to his friend should daven for him. And
it's a quiet whisper.
Yeah, it means like whisper, but we're translating it means daven.
A quiet whisper.
Quiet davening. Yeah. But we're translating it to mean davening. That because davening is supposed to be in a whisper.
Right.
So it says, "Ve'ein Yisrael labal haloshain." So what does the pasuk mean when it says "Ve'ein Yisrael labal haloshain"? That pasuk in Ecclesiastes. So it says about the snake, which we're translating to mean the nechoshes, that the sky is like copper, that it's not that it's rusty and it's not giving rain or dew. It's because of they don't have davening. They don't have people to daven. What's that? So Misha Efshaloi Lilchesh Veina Loichesh Mahana Yeshloi. So the pasuk says, what is the benefit to someone who has a tongue? It means someone who knows how to daven. What benefit is he if he's not helping? If he's not taking advantage? Why aren't the people davening like the way they should? So what do you do if the person does try and it doesn't work? So the answer is now you got to go to a chassid in the generation. V'yarba olav betfila, and he will abundantly pray for the generation. Shenema, as it says, vayetzav olav b'mafkia, as it says in the pasuk before this about Yagid olav reyo. It says he will command upon him for pigia. Pigia means to come in contact with, to reach, but it refers to davening, to pray for someone. Mafkia. Main pigia latfila, the Gemara says. Pigia means to daven. Shemar says va'atal tispalo ba'ad hamazeh, and you don't pray for this nation. Va'altisa ba'adam, and don't carry for their benefit rina utfila, song and prayer. Va'altifka bi, and don't pray and beg me. So we see from here that pigia means tefillah, and it says that you should go to the pious one of the generation, and vayetzav olav b'mafkia says that you will ask him to daven, or better yet, vayetzav aleha b'mafkia, Hashem will command the rain to happen if you have a mafkia, if someone comes to daven. So that's how they're translating it. Vayetzav olav b'mafkia, that Hashem will command command the rain to rain. In the merit of the one who's praying, because Begia means prayer. And the imlachash we also be what happens if someone did daven and it worked and it started raining, prayer was accepted, and then you got to always be careful. Megis daito yolav, and his self his feeling of his mind becomes arrogant upon him, haughty. So if he becomes haughty because look, I see it worked, maybe afli oilam, this brings anger to the world. Shenemar, as it says, mikna af al oila, that which is also a little hard to fit, hard to translate. It says Yagid olav reyoy mikna af al oila. This is the end of that pasuk, that his friend will, literally it means Yagid olav reyoy, his friend will encourage him to repent in mikna, and af al oila, which means he will cause that he will conquer the anger. Mikna af al oila.
Rabbi,
How do you translate it? 1 second. Mikna af al oila, that he causes the anger to come. Al oila is because he's arrogant. Al oila here means he's lifting up his arrogance, his haughtiness. He's proud. So he's mikna. He's acquiring anger. In other words, he's acquiring Hashem's anger al oila, because he brought himself up and made himself haughty. So this is the meaning of that pasuk of Yagid olav reyoy mikna af al oila. Yagid olav reyoy we translate it to mean he's gonna daven. He'll daven for his friend. Yagid olav reyoy, let his friend daven for him. But if he's haughty, then mikna af al oila, but he will acquire anger because of his haughtiness. Yes, Ezra.
why can't you say mekanim is he causes the creation of anger upon the world from koneh, one
Yeah,
who,
yeah, but which are you translating al oila differently, or like which
no,
word?
mekanim
Mikna means
mekanim
acquire or
causes him to create
anger.
upon the world.
But it doesn't. Yeah, I mean he is causing anger on the world.
It's like koneh shamayim va'aretz, he's creator of. So mekaneh, one who causes the creation of.
Instead of acquiring anger on the world, he's causing anger on the world. Is that what you're saying? In other words,
yeah,
the Gemara is saying that he's causing anger. So you want to translate the word mikneh to actually mean creating instead of acquiring. Yeah, I mean, okay. I mean, it's not making much of a difference. It's acquiring versus creating. Yeah, I guess it's acceptable. I don't know. Does it really mean creating when it says kainei shamayim va'aretz? I mean, it could be that the word kainei means because he created it, he acquired it. In other words, is it really literally mean created when it says kaina?
Koneh is one who creates.
Really, is that the term for creation? Okay,
How do we translate koneh shamayim va'aretz?
I mean, you could translate it both ways. It would seem like he's kaina. Hashem acquired the heaven and the earth because he created it, so he's the owner of it. So he's called the kaina. But
the fact that there's a lead mem, that's a causative action. He causes the creation or causes creating.
Right. I'm just okay. I mean, it seems okay to translate it that way as long as it fits the word kind of. I mean, it's not changing much. Acquiring versus creating. It's definitely causing anger, you know. So either way, however you translate it, it's basically the same thing. It's causing anger because of his haughtiness. He's causing anger on the world. But if you want, let's just see what Rashi over here. Mikna'af, Mishage used, I did. Rashi doesn't translate it really. Yeah. Okay, either way. The Gemara continues and says, Rava Amar. Rava says, Shnei Talmidei Chachamim sheyoshvin be'er achas. If you have two scholars and they're in the same city, ve'ein noichen zeh lo zeh b'halacha, and they don't have a pleasant discussion with each other in halacha. They don't share with each other. They don't speak with each other in halacha the way it should be.
They don't agree.
That's the way, yeah, that's
don't
what it
see.
translates it.
I understand it as don't agree.
Don't agree with each other? Okay, I understood that they're not
How
talking
about
to
to
each other in
seed?
halacha. Seed?
Yeah, CEDE.
Oh, okay.
To give way to the other one.
Well, let's take a look here. Okay, well, let's see. Let's see how the pasuk says it. So miskanin ba'ach, they are provoking anger. Umailin oisai, and they bring it up. Shenemar, as it says, mikna'af al oila, they are causing anger on to be brought up. Now, what is this pasuk a continuation of? Yagid olav reyoi mikna'af al oila. So Yagid olav reyoi would mean they should speak. His friend should speak to him. And if he doesn't, mikna'af al oila, he's causing anger to come up on them. So that's one way of one version of this Gemara. Rashi brings a second version that makes it a little more smooth, and that is that two Talmidei Chachamim, Rashi says, they share with each other in halacha. They do discuss things in halacha together. Miskanin ba'af, they're fighting, they're zealous against anger, and they remove it from them. So it's like the opposite. By the fact that they learn